the flexibility methodology. It's about storage strategy, that we need to have one hydrogen storages with a target, so not just having an area strategy, but also a concrete strategy which says until that year we need to have a target. And it's also about how to combine the existing SOS regulation, which is existing for gas, where to put the hydrogen in there. So it's a really, really good paper if you are interested in hydrogen infrastructure. When you talk about hydrogen infrastructure, you always have to talk first about the gas package. I know that many from the hydrogen world were not really happy when the gas hydrogen package joined those two topics, because they said, no, we want to be far away from the gas people. This is the dark side of the gases. No, it's not. Because in the end, hydrogen is just a gas. Hydrogen has to be transported. It will be transported in pipes. And if you transport something in pipes, most of the rules that we have today for gas will apply. You have to measure it, you have to allocate it, you have to nominate it. So many of those processes that are already out there, for example, the network codes that we have in electricity and gas, the grid access rules, because everybody wants to have access to the grids, how to calculate the grid tariffs, and the most important thing for us infrastructure people is financing. How do we get the hydrogen backbone built? How do we get it financed? How can we convert existing pipelines? How can we convert the distribution system operators? So this is all in the gas directive and in the gas regulation, and this will be the basis for everything that is coming, and especially the basis for the development of the market. And I have the advantage that I'm being in the market now for 35 years, so I've seen all gas packages, all three of them, all the developments, and I still remember a day when we said we don't need regulation. I think things have changed. The whole discussion on low carbon hydrogen, which is also in the gas package, that the DSOs are also allowed to distribute hydrogen. So the gas package is now the foundation of the development of the future market. And this is why reading the gas directive, gas hydrogen directive, is fairly easy. It's nicely written. The gas regulation is a bit more tough to read, but it's a good starting point if you really have to deal with infrastructure, because you can see where hydrogen is all now in the little bits and pieces regulated. So this was just the introduction. As you can see, I'm a typical gas hydrogen person. I'm coming from hydrogen. I've been following it all my life, and this is why I'm also happy that at the TSO and at the DSO side, we are now moving forward. This is why I would like to turn to you, Olivia. I'm really amazed how those hydrogen valleys are developing. I know we want to have a lot of them, but I also know that it's a lot of work, because you have so many players involved, but I think you have an especially big hydrogen valley, and please talk about what you're doing in Moeve and what the plans are in that region.
Thank you. Thank you, Eve. I think that you have made a very nice introduction on hydrogen and the gas and relation with natural gas. That is something that we need, at least for a few time. Well, as Eva has said, we, as CEPSA, not Moeve, in 2022 announced our Green Hydrogen Valley. A hydrogen valley, the Andalusian Green Hydrogen Valley, that will be developed in our two energy parks. We have an energy park in Algeciras and another energy park in Huelva. In each of them, we will develop 1 giga electrolysis capacity. For what? In Huelva, together with Fertiberia, we are thinking on producing ammonia. Of course, first of all, before that, I will explain you that hydrogen will be used for decarbonizing our own activity in the area, the activity of the industrials in the area, and to produce green molecules. In Huelva now, what are we going to do in Huelva? We will produce ammonia. Mainly, first green molecule, ammonia. For what? For decarbonizing fertilizers, together with Fertiberia, but also for that ammonia to be used as a fuel for the maritime sector. Why? Because the Andalusia, and concretely Huelva and Algeciras are very near from two very important ports for the transportation of goods. In the Strait of Gibraltar, 10% of the total maritime flow are running. That's why being specifically there in the Strait of Gibraltar, in Algeciras and Huelva, is very interesting to get in contact with that sector. So Huelva, ammonia, Huelva also methanol and ISAF. Why also ISAF? Because as CEPSA, we were already providing SAF, the bio-SAF, to the aviation sector. And now the next step is offering ISAF. That's why that 3 molecules will be produced in Huelva, considering that the asset, part of the assets that we already had. In Algeciras, we are focused on ammonia because of the proximity to, as I have mentioned, the port of Algeciras and the Strait of Gibraltar. In that case, we are working with Yara Clean Ammonia, that I'm sure you also know because of their relation, their position on the ammonia market. We announced that Bali in 2022, as I have said, because, and as CEPSA, because of a strong commitment with the decarbonization, we decided, with the energy transition and with the decarbonization, we decided 3 weeks ago, or I would say that we decided a lot of time ago, but 3 weeks ago we announced our new name, that is Moeve. And that link us to the energy transition and to the decarbonization of the molecules for transportation that we are looking for. In the development of our Valley, as Eva has mentioned, we have faced a lot of challenges. I would say that regulatory one is, I would say, in this moment of the sector, I would say that is the one that we can put the emphasis on because is the one that we are facing in this moment. But I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about something that I think that is also very important for the energy transition in general. We are thinking always on electrifying usages in order to be able to decarbonize using renewable energy sources. Of course, we are doing also with the production of hydrogen. Because of that, and because there are a lot of interest in electrifying, it is very useful to bring that elephant in the table. Which elephant? The elephant of the grid, access to the grid, the power grid. For all projects, and maybe for us specifically because our project is huge, the connection and access to the transmission grid is a key issue. And I would say that is a key issue not only because the interest of hydrogen producers, but also because of other demand that is trying to connect to the grid, meaning batteries, meaning data centers, and the grid is a resource, a scarce resource that we have to be able to deal with, meaning that we also have to put the emphasis on the power sector when we talk about hydrogen. Of course, hydrogen has its issues. Of course, the infrastructure that Eva has mentioned, things that I'm not going to go into the details, but the certification schemes, we need soon the certification schemes in order to be able to close properly the design or the purchases that we have to do to develop the project. Costs. I'm going to put the emphasis also in the power sector when we talk about costs, because 70–80% of the cost of the LCOH, of the cost of the hydrogen that we are to produce, comes from the energy, from the electron itself, but also from the regulated costs that are today applicable to any supply any power supply, and we pay it at home. And sorry, quick. I'm not going to continue. If you have interest, I can tell you later.
We went, as we are running a bit late, I think we have to make sure that we get everybody on board. Sorry. So I would like to turn to Hydrogène de France. So you are building large fuel cells, which is, well, not so common. So maybe you can say something on where they shall be used, but you also are using them. So it's not something as a dream, it's already happening.
It's true, indeed. So HDF has two main activities. The first one is a developer of large-scale hydrogen infrastructure on one side, and we are also, indeed, a manufacturer of fuel cells. So we started with some projects outside of Europe, outside of continental Europe, with hybrid power plants aiming to decarbonize isolated areas, such as islands or non-interconnected areas. And doing so, we understood that hydrogen had the potential to truly decarbonize these places. On the way and during the development of these projects, we understood that we could shop around any of the pieces of equipment that we needed, so solar panels, electrolyzers, storage, some batteries even. But there was one piece of equipment that was not available at the megawatt size. That was how to re-electrify this hydrogen back to electricity. And this is why we launched the second activity, which is to manufacture large-scale, multi-megawatt fuel cells. So now we are building them in Bordeaux, in our factory in Bordeaux. So this was supported by the IPCEI program. And now the factory has been inaugurated in May and is fully operational. So indeed, the main focus for this factory for now is to deliver for our projects, because we are developing projects all around the world. So already reached financial close in Martinique Island, French Guiana, very soon in Barbados, hopefully this year, let's cross fingers. But definitely next year we'll bring also more news on this side. And this is very promising. And in Europe, we have a slightly different positioning, because we position ourselves as an off-taker. So we will be a future user of the pipeline, the core network that is now being supported by Europe. And we are a developer of hydrogen to power plants. So what kind of power plants are we talking about? So we are talking about power plants made of fuel cells connected to this pipeline, connected also to an underground storage, and that will deliver power on the grid whenever it will be necessary. So we are aiming mostly at the peak of power consumption, so winter, during evening hours, when everybody comes home and turns on the TV. So there's the famous spike in power consumption. And today this role is covered by the fossil fuel power plants. So we all know that we made a pledge collectively in Europe for the net zero, and achieving net zero meaning 100% also of the electricity power at some point will need to come from decarbonized assets. And these hydrogen to power plants are there and are developed to reach the last mile, the last percent to cover this 100% net zero. So we are present in several countries in Europe. I think we can quote obviously Germany, who is really leading the way, at least in Europe. And in the context of the new Kröger strategy, is considering to launch specific tenders for power plants that will be operating directly on hydrogen. South Korea also is launching similar tenders, actually in November this year. More countries in Europe also are considering this kind of tenders. So this is where you will find HDF developers pushing projects. In terms of technology, so the multi-megawatt fuel cell is today the most efficient. So that's why we went into this direction in particular, because that's the most efficient technology today to re-electrify hydrogen back into electricity. This technology is supported by the Net Zero Industry Act. It's one of the technology quoted in this program, with absolutely no emissions of any kind, not even NOx. Today we are developing this kind of projects in Europe. So we position as an off-taker in Europe and as a manufacturer of fuel cells also from Bordeaux.
Thank you very much. I just imagine how big one 1 megawatt fuel cell is. I think it's quite a size.
It's a containerized solution, so we managed to fit 1.5 megawatts. This is our standard product today that is being delivered ex-works as of today in Bordeaux. 1.5 megawatts in a container.
Great. Thank you very much. Turning to you, Gilles. The port of Antwerp and Bruges is, well, like all the ports in Europe, I think very, very busy in designing not only what kind of things you will receive, so ammonia or liquefied hydrogen, but also the infrastructure in the port. So maybe you could say something where you stand and what do you expect also, well, who is going to ship to you and when will it come? Because everybody's waiting for the hydrogen to arrive.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So from Port of Antwerp, Bruges, exactly Antwerp and Bruges. Since 2.5 years now, we have merged, so 2 port locations, one strategy, one vision. And one big driver behind that merger was the energy transition, the hydrogen transition, because the both ports are quite complementary. You have a lot of imports of gas today through the Bruges. You have a large industrial chemical hub in Antwerp, and so there's a concrete challenge, not only in Antwerp, but in the rest of Belgium and Europe to decarbonize that industry, for which part of the solution will be hydrogen. It's clear that we have an import strategy. We want to position our port area as an import hub for these molecules, for the reception of these large quantities, storing them in terminals, converting them back to hydrogen or directly consuming them and putting them through, transporting them to other customers, to other clusters. In that sense, infrastructure is key. We will have to be able to receive them, have jetty capacity in place, have import terminals, and so on. And that's our clear strategy as a port, to focus on that, to have the companies in the port area develop that. They're not starting from scratch. It's an industrial hub already today, so there are pipelines in the ground, there are terminal facilities, but for these new energy carriers, especially if we're talking about ammonia, for example, where the market is tending towards as a hydrogen carrier, new capacity will have to be built. We have in the port area, I think 10 to 12 liquid bulk operators already today that handle a lot of fossil fuels and chemicals. And of course, they also see the opportunity to step into this new energy market and develop capacity for that. We have 5 or 6 import terminals already quite concretely under development in the port area, so that we can, by 2030, start to, and even a little bit before, the front runners have plans towards 2028 to receive millions of tons of hydrogen carriers, especially ammonia. That's the first element, of course, in the value chain. Then, of course, you also need to have crackers in place, ammonia crackers, if you want to convert it back to hydrogen, a key element of the infrastructure that needs to be built out. It's a completely new technology. Some development is still necessary, but we're quite hopeful, and we're quite proud that already today in the port area we have a large industrial demonstrator by Air Liquide to test this technology and to further scale it up towards 2027 to a fully commercial size. Besides that, all the terminals, the import ambitions that they have, they also seek to complement it with cracker initiatives. So others are under development as well. And then the last step is to transport that molecule. You have it landed in the port area, but you need to get it, of course, to the industrial consumer. We see maritime off-takers in the port area that could potentially use ammonia directly. For that, there are bunkering solutions, or bunkering solutions will be developed. You have direct ammonia consumers. But if we're talking about hydrogen, the best and most efficient way to get it to the consumers, not only in the port area, but also in the other industrial clusters, is to have a hydrogen backbone in place. As Belgium, I think we're already quite advanced, that we have a hydrogen law implemented, that the regulated body that will do the transport, Fluxys, has been appointed, and they have a concrete plan and timeline on how to develop that backbone. First, in the industrial clusters in Belgium, so Antwerp connected with Ghent, and then starting from that by 2026, and then starting from that getting on the German border by 2028-29. That's the ambition, and it will of course be crucial in realizing that import strategy, that hub strategy that we have as a port authority.
Thank you very much. I think we're going to come back to the plans of infrastructure in the next round. So I would like to turn to you, Leif. I'm not sure whether this is correct, but it seems as if you are the ones who have the longest running electrolyzer production in the world. Is that correct? Could you say that?
To be honest, I'm not sure about it, but we are producing electrolyzers.
Seems so.
We are producing electrolyzers since more than 50 years at large scale, really. Yeah, this stems, of course, from the chlor-alkali electrolyzer production, where we provide electrolyzers also at the 100 megawatt scale already for the chemical industry to produce chlorine and caustic soda. But of course, I expect to be able to continue now. Yeah. Of course, we use this knowledge which we have since more than 50 years to transfer it to the water electrolyzer technology. And we developed an alkaline water electrolyzer system, which we apply to several projects now, and looking at the order backlog, it's safe to say that we are currently probably the largest electrolyzer manufacturer globally. We as thyssenkrupp are a technology provider for electrolyzer technologies, and we provide the electrolyzer technologies for the NEOM projects, for example, for Air Products, more than 2 gigawatt. We provide the electrolyzers for the H2 Green Steel or Stegra project in Sweden, where we provide more than 700 megawatts of electrolyzer capacity. Rotterdam is another example, and we are also collaborating with Moeve now on the Andalusian hydrogen project. And so in total, it's more than 3 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity we have under execution currently. Now we're sitting on an infrastructure panel. You may wonder, of course, why. And it's what you mentioned before, in your introduction. The Hydrogen Europe study you mentioned really quotes that connecting the infrastructures for the electricity and the gas systems saves a lot of costs. And electrolyzers are the key equipment actually to enable this connection. Electrolyzers transform green electrons to green molecules, and therefore allow to use the green energy in hard-to-abate sectors like steel sectors, in refineries, everywhere you cannot use electricity directly. And thereby electrolyzers can provide lots of flexibility also to the grids. For example, when placing electrolyzers close to the renewable hydrogen production, it can reduce the tension on the grids, that you don't need to expand the grids as much as otherwise. But also looking at the other side, if you put electrolyzers close to the offtake, to steel plants, to refineries, it's also that you give some of the flexibilities that the electrolyzers have to these other industrial plants, which usually are less flexible than electrolyzers. Our electrolyzers have a very wide operation window. We can run between 10 and 20%, between 10 and 100% of the load, and this is just for a module. For a full plant, it's going down to 1%. It depends on the size of the plant, to 100% of the load, and we can ramp up and down quite fast. Usually faster than many other plants connected to the grids. This is the advantage that electrolyzers can provide. There are more things. At thyssenkrupp nucera, has also announced in March strategic partnership with the Fraunhofer IKTS in Germany, German research organization, to commercialize the high temperature electrolyzer technology. Yeah? And looking at high temperature electrolyzers, you have the advantage that you can provide some of the energy required for the electrolyzer process via heat, via waste heat. Yeah? And this also gives access to another kind of resource and further reduces the pressure on the grids itself. Yeah? So this is something that really only electrolyzer technologies or electrolyzers can bring to the table. Yeah? And the last thing I want to mention here is when we're looking at the hydrogen industry or the hydrogen projects in general, we are talking about we're talking a lot about missing offtake actually. Yeah, so there are lots of projects idea, but projects often have difficulties finding the offtake. And I think part of the reason is a lack in infrastructure. Yeah, that you cannot connect the production, hydrogen production or any kind of production with the offtake. Yeah, and therefore it's very critical that we get the infrastructure in place, that we start getting the infrastructure in place, so that we get the certainty and security that enables project developers to really connect to the off-takers.
Thank you, Leif. This is the perfect jump-off point to talk about what kind of infrastructure is needed. So coming back to the gas package, there's a whole new world of planning in there, which means you have the TYNDP, so the 10-year network grid development plan, which is now planning gas, electricity, and hydrogen together. No more silos. Silos is dead. We are now talking about integrated planning between the sectors because people have realized that it doesn't make sense to plan everything separately. We do have the national grid development plans. Also there you have to have joint scenarios between gas, electricity, and hydrogen. And you have the distribution grids who also have to plan because they are building on the local heating and cooling plants, which are mandatory. So you can imagine having those different planning exercises which are running every second year, sort of. We also have to make sure that the hydrogen infrastructure that we want to have in place across Europe is put into those plans. Because, sorry for being a bit critical, but this is my day-to-day job at the moment because I'm mostly spending time on European infrastructure planning. If we do not have the hydrogen infrastructure in those European plans, they will not be built and they will not be financed because the famous PCI projects are all depending on, and we are all very proud on the PCI projects that we have in hydrogen, they are all depending on the outcome of the TYNDP. So if the TYNDP says we don't need hydrogen or we don't need cross-country hydrogen pipes, then they're out. So it's important, and this is why I'm calling on everybody who's sitting here, that if you want to have a hydrogen infrastructure being built, you also have to say in those kind of consultations, yes, we want to have it, we need it because we have demand. But turning to my four panelists is a more concrete question, less on this more European discussion level. What do you expect from the infrastructure providers, which is the distribution system operator and the transmission system operators? What would you, we're close to Christmas, so what would you wish for? So, of course, you would like to have a connection, but looking, for example, at your Hydrogen Valley, I think you're not that much involved at the distribution level, but it would be interesting if the local infrastructure and the overlying infrastructure, is it moving fast enough? Is the DSO and the TSO, are they responsive enough? So do you really see that something is happening? Or are you constantly told, oh, come back in 2 years because then we might know what we want to do?
Well, I would say that in Spain, Enagas has done a strong effort in order to be able to plan a hydrogen network. And the effort has not been only located in Spain, but also connecting with Portugal, France, and Germany. At the beginning, I would say that the effort was only local, and they launched the call for interest for the hydrogen Spanish backbone that was launched in 2022 and 2023. But now they have as H2Med is really evolving, the fact is that they are going to launch. I think that it was launched a week ago, and now they are going to really start with the works. Call for interest for the whole infrastructure. So I would say that the answer is yes. The Spanish TSO and the DSO, I would say that DSO will go later, but the Spanish TSO has been pushing for the development of the Spanish backbone and doing a lot of analysis regarding the possibility of using the current natural gas network to be somehow used, or at least is in some specific tranches used for hydrogen. But yes, we indeed, in this call for interest, as you have said, we have to push for the infrastructure, because we really have demand in Germany, in the Netherlands, in the northern countries of Europe. So if the demand is there, we have to be able to develop that infrastructure. It's clear.
Antwerp, Bruges is in the lucky situation that you are not far away from Zeebrugge. So, and Zeebrugge is a physical hub, so there are pipelines. Well, when you look there, when you look at the maps, there's a lot of pipelines going there. So you really are very close to where you can bring the hydrogen then. So you're not producing the hydrogen yourself, you're the intermediary. Do you have the feeling that now, as the gas package is finished and the rules are in place, that people say, oh yes, now we can go? Or is it still that they say hesitant, we don't know whether there's a market evolving, and maybe we still ship it or we trailer it, we don't know whether we want to inject it into the grid? Or is the knowledge now that, yes, transporting hydrogen with a pipe is the most efficient instead of bringing it on a truck? Do you have the feeling that also within the harbor people are thinking like this? Or are they just used to ship everything or to transport it otherwise with trailers?
I think it will be a multitude of options. First of all, I agree with what you said. With both Antwerp and Zeebrugge, we try to match global supply, wherever it will come from, to the off-takers in our region and in the neighboring regions. There we're mainly looking at large industrial consumers. Those will be the main off-takers. That will be in the maritime industry, in the refineries, steel making, and so on. So those heavy duty applications, these energy intensive industries. And for that, it's crucial to connect them via pipeline, I think. There will be some cases where you use your hydrogen carrier, for example, that you have imported directly, and there other logistical options to get it to your end consumer exist. Barging or transporting it by rail, for example. If you use it in the maritime sector, you can directly consume it in the port. So then the need you can go immediately from your import terminal to your bunkering solution. But getting it to that industrial consumer, like Leif also mentioned, we need to connect as a port that global supply with the off-taker, and for that we will need a hydrogen backbone system. We're quite confident and hopeful that in Belgium we're taking the necessary correct steps. Like I mentioned, we have a hydrogen law in place. The TSO has been appointed, or the HNO in this case has been appointed. They have a plan how to develop it locally in Belgium, in the clusters, how to connect it with Germany, because also there substantial demand is situated. They have a timeline to do that, so we're quite hopeful that those developments will be there, which is necessary for the developments of the other parts of the infrastructure. If we're talking about the import, the terminals, the crackers that are into commercial discussions, that also want to take FIDs, that want to build their capacities. So it's a bit, all stakeholders have to come together and to enable this. But we're quite hopeful and optimistic that this is ongoing. Given also the regulatory framework that's now been decided upon at European level, that's translate it on a pragmatic approach in national legislation, and then we will be able to make it happen.
Thank you. Gilles, on the electricity side, because you're in between, you are coupling the sectors, which is very nice. We have a very intense debate here in Brussels, but also in the member states, about what does the electricity side need, and how can the hydrogen side support the electricity side. Sometimes I get the reaction, we don't need it. I think everybody needs it. And one of the big points is flexibility. And I think you are in the perfect position. But on the flexibility, it's still, well, who can offer flexibility? Is it the customer? Is it the power plant? I think a fuel cell is a typical flexibility. Is it the battery? Is it the car battery? But the question is, what kind of market would you, for example, target when you talk about fuel cells? Is it really this very quick, instantaneous flexibility, or is it the long-term flexibility? We are just now going into this famous consultation about only the methodology on how to assess flexibilities. And if you are successful with your fuel cells, I think they will play a very, very big role, because they are quiet, they can sit everywhere, you can nearly put them anywhere, as long as you have a hydrogen supply.
Thank you. That's very accurate. Actually, that's one of the topics that we would like to be upgraded in the agenda of the regulatory framework, is the positive impact of hydrogen to power on power grid in Europe. And I think Leif mentioned very well the benefit that can provide electrolyzers, but now probably is the time to talk more about fuel cells and other technologies in the hydrogen to power sector. Flexibility is the key word, because when we benefit from a very well interconnected grid, and this is the case between Germany, France, Spain. We can always complain about these interconnections, but basically the grid is functioning and can cope, let's say, with the renewable sources all across Europe. Still, we need flexibility, because it's not always the case. We need to match the consumption profile with the production profile. That's the flexibility. On the intraday market, probably the batteries will play the majority of the role, and this is not where we should focus the use of hydrogen. We used to say that hydrogen is the champagne of the renewable energy. Let's use this carefully when we need that. And there's a specific word actually for this kind of episodes, the Dunkelflaute. I'm not a German speaker, so I hope I did not mispronounce it. The idea is to describe these periods basically in winter, when there is a lack of sun, a lack of wind for the renewable energy sector to provide power to the grid. And these episodes can last several days. So typically we are talking about 2-3 days. We had recently an episode of 5 days actually in Germany. What's the result of this? The spot market spiked more than 800 euros 2 weeks ago in the German bidding zone. That's huge. That's clearly not sustainable on the long term. And in practical, what does it mean? It means that collectively countries have to restart coal power plants, more gas turbines putting on the grid, and therefore the intensity of carbon is clearly increased during these episodes. So, if the pledge for net zero is to be achieved, then we need to go and chase for this last percent. And today, hydrogen to power is the let's say most serious and more credible, and actually a bankable and proven technology to do so. With track record that we are slowly building across the globe, not only in Europe. And hydrogen to power is clearly targeting this area. Seasonal flexibility, not intraday flexibility. So where is the border between both? That's a very interesting question. And actually, another package of the Kröger strategy is addressing long duration energy storage, and they are targeting systems able to sustain 72 hours of energy, providing energy in a row at the nominal capacity. And today, we don't see that many options providing a relatively affordable cost of energy apart from hydrogen. So that's why that's also another kind of projects that HDF is developing to address that. And the definition of long duration energy storage differs from one country to the other. Today is the moment to explore what kind of benefits one technology can offer compared to the other one.
Thank you. So that's a very good description on the different kind of storages. Moving to the flexibility side, there we are sometimes talking about seconds and the needs on how to connect electrolyzers and the debate that we have there. Sometimes I feel that people don't want to connect the electrolyzer to the electricity grid, but they are so big, they can offer so much flexibility that everybody should be happy to have them. Because
I agree, yeah.
so I think we have to push for them. So both sides. So you have the one side is the storage, but also your flexibility. Is there anything pressing at the moment regarding flexibilities?
I think you mentioned it correctly. We can, or the electrolyzers itself, they can offer a lot to the grid. They can offer a lot for the sector integration. Yeah. And I can only speak from a technology provider point of view. I cannot speak on behalf of our clients, of course, who actually operate then the plants. Yeah? But what I see in the discussions is now that the solution is always, for certain problems, is always looked for in the electrolyzers. Yeah? So whenever you have any issue regarding grid stability, for example, electricity grid stability, everybody looks at the electrolyzers to solve this issue. Yeah? And I'm talking here specifically about the discussions about the grid connection codes and more specifically about the fault right through topic. Yeah? I'm not going into detail. I see the clock running down. Yeah? But what I want to mention is, from what we see, the business cases for the hydrogen projects are very sensitive. Yeah? And the project developers really struggle with getting a good business case. Yeah? And you asked for a wish list also before, yeah. So my wish list would really be, electrolyzers can provide a lot, but that must be adequately priced in, yeah. So the project's owners, or the plant operators, they must be compensated, because otherwise, if you put more and more efforts on the hydrogen projects, this will kill lots of projects, and this is an issue not just for us, but for Europe in general, yeah. And I think the advantage with the infrastructure discussion, the advantage with the sector integration, with joining the grids, is really that we can look for the best solution, not just in a particular project. Yeah? Electrolyzers will play their role in the solution, for sure, but it may be the cheaper option, the more feasible option, if also other parts, for example, additional capacity on the grid side, also contribute. Yeah, and I think this is really, in my opinion, important to consider. Yeah, and if you look at that, I think we are in a good way to let's say, debottleneck the infrastructure situation. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think, Leif, you already had your Christmas wish. So each one of you has one wish to the Christmas fairy. So, but a short one, not a long one, please, because everybody probably is hungry.
Just in a few words, because I think we understood that there's a lot of complementarity on one side from the electrolyzer and the fuel cell. Probably an interesting comment is that we need something in between, because a developer that will promote a project aiming to produce hydrogen will do it all along the year and will chase the cheap hours of power. And there will be not a constant flow, let's say, of hydrogen, but somehow continuous throughout the year, whereas the kind of power plant that we develop, we will offtake basically during winter, when there is a lack of energy, or at least renewable energy on the power grid. So we will be an off-taker in majority during winter, during selected hours. So the buffer in between is super important, and this is called underground storage. Today, probably we need to highlight more about that.
Underground storage is your wish. So you would like to have a small underground storage very close by to where you have your fuel cells. That was so in the Harry Potter bag, the underground storage. To you, Olivia, your Christmas wish.
I would say the link between hydrogen and the power sector, meaning not also, of course, well, the grid itself, flexibility, allowing electrolysis project to participate in ancillary services as a new unit, as a generator, as a storage, because as Tisan has mentioned, there is a really power to offer flexibility for the power sector within the electrolyzers.
So you can see the close cooperation between the sectors is important, and I think this is what you do day to day in the harbor, that you're dealing with so many different kinds of things that you trade and transport. So what is your Christmas wish?
Well, exactly that, I would say. So we interconnect quite a lot of different stakeholders across that value chain. We see now that they are entering in market consultations to really make the commercial interests concrete and to start building. It would be my wish indeed to see those market consultations materialize and to start taking FIDs beginning next year to build that infrastructure value chain.
So thank you very much. I think it was wonderful because we had a big part of the value chain. Yes, we missed the storages, but at least we mentioned them. The heating customers is me. So there is the hydrogen universe. It's really getting very broad, and it's wonderful to see how many of those things are now coming into production. So having the decision, final investment decision, really building it, you too. So it's great. So thank you very much. I wish you another couple of days here at the Hydrogen Week. It's always very exciting and exhausting. And yes, thank you very much for the audience. Please, a round of applause.